we're going to try and work this as a little bit of an interview situation, work through a process that starts with Simon's early days in motorsport and works towards where Simon and I eventually met in an unusual circumstance because we were both club members but hadn't actually bumped into each other at the time. Before we get going, there's a couple of warnings up front. A lot of these photos were taken pre-digital, so they came off film. A lot of them are black and white, which points to the age of Mr. Harrex. A lot of the photos came out of albums, and literally I had to peel them out of the albums to scan them. So a lot of there's a few quality issues in the photos, but I think you'll get the gist most of the way. There's definitely no selfies. But in the end, hopefully it will give you an idea of what we've been going through over the last 25 years together. Second warning is that there will be a little bit of political incorrectness. So anyone that doesn't want to be involved in that can go and stand at the bar outside now. And look, I guess that's enough of the sarcasm for now. That's going to get a lot heavier as we move forward. But Simon really needs no introduction to most of you. He's had an incredible motorsport career. He's had an incredible time with the BMW Club as a motorsport educator. We're hoping that getting him up here might spark some of the guys that haven't had their car on the track to get their backside trackside, so to speak. I'll sort of chime in time to time and try and keep him under control because he does get a little bit carried away on occasions. He gets wayward, yeah. And if anyone knows where his 10-year-old socket is, can they let him know? Because that will stop him. That will stop him using the F word more than So, without any further ado, let's move forward. And I'll bring up the first slide and let Simon have a bit of a comment about this.
That one there is me.
It's not a BMW.
It's a Lotus Escort, the genuine one too. I wish I had it today, so it'd be worth a bit of money. Yeah, probably one of the first races that I did in that car. The first race I did in that car I actually won, and it was a good car.
That's Lakeside?
Lakeside, that's Carousel, coming out of Carousel. It was a really, really nice car. That picture there is a fellow called Graham from Gala. That's one of the 25 special RS2000 Escorts that were imported into the country, and they all ended up as racing cars. A fellow called Peter Burt now owns that car, and if you look on the small Ford forum, it's a prominent car there. That's my Lotus twin cam. It's
got your name on it.
It's got my name on it. Yes, it has too. And it's sponsored by IPEC. IPEC used to buy the tyres for me. And one day somebody came up to me and said, what does IPEC stand for? And I said, well, I pass every
Can I ask about the racing number 69?
Yeah.
Is it true that was because if you put it on the lid, it still read the same?
Yeah. I actually did put that car on the lid. I actually ended up in the lake in that car. At the King, the fastest part of the circuit. I just passed a fellow called Barry Nixon Smith in the Holden dealer team sports van around the Eastern Loop. I passed him actually at Hungary. I let him down on the Eastern Loop, and I went down the straight, and I slipped off on my own water. Now, at the kink at Lakeside, in those days, there wasn't a tyre wall on the left-hand side of the circuit. There was a launching rack mound, and behind that mound was the lake. What's there now is all reclaimed land. Mate, the front of the car was 4 times over and into the lake. So it was a nice ride. With blue, green, blue, green, blue, green.
Okay, so this is the start of the big time. You might like to tell us a little bit about the George. Well, you'll have to explain it because the photo's not quite all there. But moving on from that initial escort, Simon got involved with the George Doniger team.
The George Doniger team was eventuated in the mid to late 60s. I met a fellow called Dr. Ian Corness, at Warwick Farm in Sydney, because I was working on my brother's U2 club at the time. And we all used to end up at the Donnybrook Hotel at Warwick Farm for a few sherbets afterwards, you see. And I got into that, became very friendly with the Doc, as he was known, always known. And when I came up here, I got married, came up here, we renewed our acquaintances, and I built the Escort. And then when we looked in the cupboard, I suddenly found that we had another body shell and we had enough parts to make another one. So that Escort...
I think this is one of the other ones.
Yes. Well, actually, yes. That's the Escort that we had, which was a friend of mine, a fellow called Arthur Glasby, who's no longer with us. He passed away from cancer, which is a shame, because he was a lovely guy. And he was a guy that could tell jokes from the time he got there to the time he ended. You left there and he just didn't stop telling jokes. He was one joke master. Okay. The car on the left is that particular car after I built it into a race car with the Dog. And then at the time of the first car, we had a sponsorship from Shell. And the Shell sponsorship ended when Archie White, who was the motor racing manager of Shell, retired. So I said to Ian, I said, you used to be in, he was in a team called the Young Lions, which was a team of British Leyland Works drivers, Ross Bond, Ian Corness, Graham Laurie, and...
Move on, come on.
Yeah, move on, okay. Laurie, yeah, Graham Laurie. Anyway, and he said, yeah, we'll sponsor you, but make it a 3-car team. And I said, oh, who's the third person? And he said, oh, let me guess. Oh, it was John English, you see. So John English became the third member, and that's John English's car then, which was a Group C touring car at the time, and we had 2 sports sedans and a Group C touring car. And it was the first 3-car identical race team in the country. All the other teams had been different model cars, and this was the first real one.
Okay, who else is like me? If you didn't have a Beamer in the garage, maybe you have that car in the garage. Yeah. Isn't that just sexy? Oh, sorry, nice.
I'll go with the first one.
And that's me in my younger days.
And I'd still have that car even with that haircut.
I've still got the haircut. Not quite as big. And that's Dr. Ian Corness on the right. He's now living in Thailand and has been racing an Escort, very similar to that, at the racetrack, Vera racetrack in Thailand. And that's the Fat Man English. His nickname was Fatty English. Actually, I'll go through this. That photograph was taken at the Sherwood State School, okay? And I was always known as Sherwood Slim. The Doc was Morningside Muncher, don't ask me why. And Fatty, G-Bung Fats, because he lived in G-Bung. And there's the 3 cars. And I actually built all the engines on those cars, all the gearbox on those cars, painted all the cars, did the flares on the cars. Everything on those cars was done by me.
You showing off again?
No. I'm just stating it. And that's a pair of young blokes there. Okay? I think I was 28, I think, or I can't remember. And Corness was about 6 years older than me. And yeah, good car. Now, if you look at the sign writing on the front of it, it's RXA. Now, the RX was taken off because he's a doctor. If you look at a doctor's script, it says RX on the script in the corner. It is thou shalt supply this person with whatever. And we just added an A on the bottom of it, and that's what it became. Okay. And that's me at Surface Paradise, the old Surface Paradise.
That's Lakeside exhaust, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, noise limiting.
Straight mufflers, mate. No mufflers at all. Straight exhaust. And mate, they used to sound ordinary. 4-into-1 pipes. Really nice. It was a good car. And a fun car. That's John Whittaker, and there's another Mini behind it, I think, and me going down the straight at Lakeside.
Is that a crumpled bonnet?
It was actually just breaking up. It was a bit light. The wind pressure used to get under it and blow it up. Yeah, that's me winning a race at Lakeside, up the bridge at Lakeside. Great, good race. And that's the slow down lap. Thank you very kindly. I won that. Good.
Didn't you get called up to the CAMS office for giving the bird?
No,
that was me.
You did.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, that was me.
You gave him the correct finger.
Yeah.
That's me and a fellow called Craig Kinmont. Craig Kinmont is no longer with us. He died of cancer as well. Lovely guy, Vietnam veteran.
Bloody good racer.
Well, plus a very, very good racer. Ended up running at Bathurst as well in Commodore with a fellow called Alf Grant, who was Dick Johnson's next door neighbour. And he also used to buy Dick Johnson's old racing cars, as in True Blue 2. And that's Arthur Glasby, me, and a fellow called Jim Milliner. Now that car there is Arthur's car, and I used to race that car for him as well as him. And I used to have to pad the seat up because he was a huge fellow and I was a small fellow. So I could barely see over the steering wheel.
Nice change.
You haven't given me a picture of the George Donninger letterheads. We're going to have that because that tells a story. Goodyear Corner at Surfers Paradise. Now,
can you see over the steering wheel now?
Mate, I was looking in the rear vision mirror at him, and he's looking at me in the photograph that we have on the wall at the workshop. Now, Col Wenzel is the guy that why we're all wearing hands devices now, because he had a major accident going into the Eastern Loop at Lakeside a few years ago. Was not wearing a hands device because this was before they were mandated, and literally pulled his spine or his head off his spine, and they just said that's it. Everybody wears a hands device. So, and he was a really nice guy. We used to had some really good races with him. That's me at the hill climb, and I was absolute shit at the hill climb. Believe me.
Actually, you told me a story about your definition of hill climb one time. Yeah. Can you say that here?
Yeah, of course we can, mate. I reckon it was a premature ejaculation. It was over before you started. Although, I was hopeless at it.
Which bit?
The hill climb. But on the other side of the coin, my son Piers is absolutely fantastic at the hill climb. He owns all the
glad you said hill climb.
He owns all the lap records there, and they'll stand for years to come. Now, the George.
It's got a bonnet bowl again, mate.
No, it's breaking up. Man. The George Donninger's Team Castrol seemed to end after about 2.5 years, I think, and the other two decided that they got sponsorship from Brian Byrne Ford. So I just happened to have a mate that worked for Wayne Hill Holden, and I thought, well, if they've got a Ford dealership sponsoring them, I think I'll get a Holden dealership sponsored. So there my car became a Wayne Hill Holden car with red sides instead of a blue side. So there you go. And it was fun.
I'm just speechless. Honestly, I'm speechless.
That's the car after I'd sold it. The guy wanted it painted white because he was going to put red, white and blue stripes all over it. So that was after we'd just thrown a coat of paint over it, and that was it was sold. So
on to a new venture.
On to a new venture.
What about the Morris at the back?
The new venture was a mate of mine owned this Formula Ford. It's a Bowen P6 Formula Ford, formerly run by Jeff Brabb with the Grace Brothers team. Not a bad car. I had a lot of fun in it, but when I got into it, getting it from a car which had a bit of horsepower, that thing had no horsepower. And I thought, I've got to do something with this, because it was really, really hard work staying with the rest of them. So I thought, I'll just do a bit of work to it. So there's me coming through Shell Corner onto the straight at Lakeside, and that's Martin Tye behind me. Now he is the middle son of Ivan and Joan Tye. Now, they've been close friends of mine for many, many years, and also Justin will been very friendly with them as well. Now, I knew what I was doing in the motor with the Formula Ford, because when it needed to freshen up, I looked at everything and I thought, needs more compression. So the 1300 Ford pistons are the same crown height as a 1600 Ford piston, but it had a much, much smaller bowl in the top. And I thought, that'll go nicely well. So we did a bit of match porting, and we did a bit of this and a bit of that. And I knew how much I was cheating. I mean, seriously, I knew how much I was cheating. And then Martin Ty came up, pulled around me, past me, and just drove away into the distance. And I went, well, I know what I've got, so what the hell have you got? Now this is, while I was racing the Formula Ford, was the construction of my first Commodore race car. And having been involved in club and racing in the early days with my brother, knowing how to make space frame chassis, and I actually built a Clubman space frame chassis which I sold to a guy, a fellow called Peter Walton, who owned a service station in Cannon Hill. Anyway, I couldn't afford to finish it at the time, so he finished it and he used to race it. Now this car is built like a Clubman. It's a very, very light car. The whole car weighed 925 kilos, the first car it did. It had 550 horsepower, so it was quite exciting to drive.
Okay, we're back on track.
Good. Now this is what the car's made of. Okay.
Okay, so just to get us back on track here, after the open wheeler, Simon decided to get into sports sedans, and yep.
I'll tell you a story about why I decided to do that. I was at Surfers Paradise track having a drive of a McLaren Formula 5000, and on the track at the track at the same time was a fellow called Harrex Smith, who had the ex-Holden dealer team Tirana, which was built by Ron Harrex, and it was not a bad looking thing, but I sort of considered it a bit agricultural, because it was made of really big tubes and my things were, and I said, I walked up to the car and I was looking at it, and he said, what are you looking at? I said, well, I'm thinking about making one of these things. And he said, oh, you couldn't do it, you couldn't make one of those. So that's like waving a red flag to bull, so I made one.
Mate, that looks suspiciously like a space frame I've seen hanging on the workshop wall at Harrex Automotive for the last 25 years.
The one with the little 2-inch wheels on it.
The only time it gets mobile is on those 2-inch wheels.
Do you know that while that may be the point now, but when I was in my 30s, we would spend so many hours doing it, and I was really enthusiastic about what I was doing. But now I'm in my 70s, it's taking a little bit longer. Okay, this is the first time I drove that car, and we hadn't even painted the front or the back. The only part of the car that was painted was the roof and the door pillars and the doors, I think. As you can see, it has a full front clip and a full rear clip, and the rear clip used to go all the way up to the top of the back window, so it was really easy to work on, and it was a pretty trick-looking car. It took a bit of time to get the car sorted, because I was buying tyres off the Dunlop tyre man, who I won't name. Anyway, he was selling me tyres that were the same as Dick Johnson's, because they were the same size. But Dick Johnson's car weighed about 1,600 kilos, and my thing weighed 925. I could never make them work. It was just fighting a losing battle. But one day we arrived at the track, and I'd sort of worn out the tyres that I had, and I'd ordered a set, and he didn't bring them, so I had to go home, look on the tyre racks and find all the best set of tyres I could use for that meeting. I went to the Avon man and said, I want a set of tyres, sports car tyres, soft wall sports car tyres, Group A sports car tyres. So I got a set of these, and immediately, once we put those on, went 4 seconds of that just by bolting them on, without doing anything else. And suddenly we were competitive. And we ran that car with the best cars and the fastest cars in the country at the time. And we were way faster than normal. In fact, I went out on a Friday afternoon to Lakeside when Dick, Peter Brock, all that clan was out there. It was a Friday afternoon. And I got signed on, got dressed, got in the car, ready to drive it. Oh no, you can't go out there. Why not? You know, you can't go out there with touring cars. And they wouldn't let me go out there with the touring cars, so they stuck me in with Formula Vs and Formula Fords and all sorts of things. And I nearly had a really, really big accident going down the back under the bridge because I caught 2 Formula Vs there, and they were running line astern, so I'd made up my mind where I was going to go past them. And one decided at the last moment that he was going to overtake the other one, and there was no road for me. So yeah, but you know, as you can see, that last picture was mid-corner under the hill at Surface Paradise, and there's no body roll at all. It was a really trick car, nice handling car. There's that's an off.
That's an off. That's a definite off. You're looking pretty happy with yourself.
I thought that was extra positive care.
Who's the guy sitting on the mat?
That's that little fellow called Harrex. And he was really. I slipped off a corner called Firestone Corner, or yeah, it was Firestone Corner, which is a left-hand corner of Surface Paradise, and I went through a barbed wire fence, down a ditch, and a gully, and that was the result. This is probably one of the last pictures of that car at Amaroo in Sydney. And Amaroo Park was a trick circuit, really lovely.
Now this is a classic photo because anyone that's seen the video of this race at Surface Paradise, if you haven't, just Google YouTube
Simon Harrex.
Surface Paradise Raceway.
And that's me, Gary Scott. That's the ex-George Fury Bluebird. The other car is John White and his Monza. Now John White was the Chev man. He was the Chev man of the day, and he never beat. And I bought all the stuff off him to build the engine on that car. Gary is a very forceful driver, very good. That car was George Fury's pole-sitting car from Bathurst the year before. But that car was then gutted, lightweighted, bigger turbo, and used in the Sport Sedan series. So anyway, I lost. What we did was, I had the race worked out. He actually crashed into my driver's door at the first corner, which didn't upset me too much, but you know, it was one of those things. Last lap, last corner, he met we both met a slow car in the last corner. He got through, I didn't. That was how we lost it.
That's some serious toe out.
That's a drift car.
Now that's a trip at about over 200 clicks into the scenery at Amaroo. I met this fellow called Michael Caruso. Michael Caruso Senior was Michael Caruso Junior, who's in the V8 touring car ranks now today in the Nissan team. His father, he used to own John French's old Falcon hardtop, and it was a bullet in the straight, but it was really bad around the corners. And I met him in qualifying, and every time I went to pass him, he'd shut the door on me, and I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. Anyway, I waited till Channel 7 corner onto the main straight, and then blew past him, and as I went past him, I shook my head on him. Don't do that, don't do that. Anyway, after the qualifying session, I walked up and I said, mate, you really need to, you know, be a decent fellow, mate, and let a faster car through. He said, I don't like you. What do you mean I don't like you? I'm not let you pass. I said, oh, okay. Anyway, timesheets came out. I was 7 seconds a lap faster. And on the second row of the grid, we had Kevin Barter in the Pantera, which was a Barry Lock-built Pantera on pole. A fellow called Keith Carling in the Turbo RX-7 beside him. Gary Scott and me on the second row. Well, race day came and it's pissing down with rain. Absolutely bucketing down. And I'm a Queenslander, I didn't have any wets at all. So we're on slicks. As you can see, we're on slicks there. And the flag dropped, and we buzzed ourselves off, and the two in front disappeared. Gary Scott's disappearing, and this falcon came down the inside between me and the fence, which I thought there was never any gap there, but he got through, and he held me up all the way around Dunlop Loop, all the way down through Mazda House, and then at Honda Corner he went to the classic line. So I thought, okay, that's fine, straight down the inside. And as we went down the inside, he just drove over the bonnet of the car. So by this time I'm angry, and I mean really angry.
Or the 10 mils socket lost out.
There was lots of expletives there. So anyway, I decided that as he's gone over the front of the car, he was sliding off the front of the car, so I just gunned him and hit him fair in the door. And I stopped because his car was so heavy, it just literally stopped me in my tracks. So we had a drag race off to the Rothmans Corner, and me being on the inside of Honda Corner puts me on the outside of Rothmans Corner. And we're side by side going through this Rothmans Corner, which is commonly known as the stop-start corner on the road. Okay? And all those marks up the side of the car are from the concrete wall. He's literally into the wall. So I thought, back off and wait for the straight. So I backed off and waited for the straight and passed him. And as I was passing him at the base of the tower, he literally went, boom. And I bounced off the fence that side, T-boned him, and we ended up 3/4 of the way up Bitchapave Hill, both buried in the scenery. But he backed it in, and his car was about half the length of the car. It was up to the B pillar, and that was the result of me. Now, as I was going in, you get this feeling about this is going to hurt, and you think, because you're not going slowly. And indelibly imprinted across my forehead was, this is not nice, this is going to hurt. So anyway, that's the result of it. So when at the time I was leading the Queensland Sports Sedan Championship in front of Gary Scott, and I came back to Brisbane. We loaded the wreck back on the truck and came back to Brisbane. And Jim Berry from Italia Spares was a mate of mine, and he was sponsoring me with bits up for the Commodore and shock absorbers and clutches and things like that. And he bought this car off Gary Cossa for me to finish the Sports Sedan Championship in. And it was quite a nice car. It was very basic, not what I was used to, but when you get out of a big car and you get into a small car, you can really stand it on its ear. You can see the tyre deflection on the back there. That's Goodyear Corner at Surfers Paradise, mate, and it was, yeah, I had a fun time in the car. And I still came second in the whole series, so that was good. This has come home and rebuild another car. So
this was to create another sports sedan to replace the Treeks car. Yeah.
So Mark II sports sedan, this is it, VL Commodore. We made new panels for it, and we also had a problem with midfielders complaining about the fact that it only had 2 doors, and they expected me to have the door frames at least in the back. And I said, well, no, you don't need that. If you read your CAMS manual, you don't have to have the doors. They ended up writing a letter, the Queensland Racing Drivers Association, on behalf of them, wrote a letter to John Keefe, who was the CEO of CAMS at the time, and he just wrote a letter back saying, delete the doors, you idiots. So,
now, I only found this out myself the other day, but there is a reason for the multicoloured scheme on this car.
yeah, okay. One of the we'll go back to this car. I'd had a run-in many times with, we've missed a few. Yeah. The colours are all the race cars that I've owned.
Leftover paint.
Leftover paint. Just look underneath look underneath the bench. Oh, there's some Castrol green. There's some red off the Falcon that I ran at Bathurst. There's the yellow off my Lotus Cortina I had, and the blue was the engine paint for the Falcon. As you can see, pretty trick-looking thing. It's a pity it only lasted 2 race meetings. Yeah, it was a great car, better than the first one, miles better than the first one. Did 55s around Lakeside probably 35 years ago in that. On prize, nothing like it.
Geez, you're a good looking rooster. With a hat on.
Oh, that's my Darth Vader.
That's the second proof shop we got there. Obviously no sponsors. Can't afford to pay for the photographs.
I have to show you.
So this is one you really need to stay. This is the big time right now.
Okay. Right. A few years ago, I had a few run-ins with a fellow called Greg Black, who was the chief Australasian scrutineer. Okay. Now, we had problems with him at Bathurst with the Rover. We had problems with him at Amaroo with the first car, which had the Darth Vader engine cover. Anyway, to cut a long story short, this was Mark II, and it was a touring car meeting. As you can see by the crowds were enormous. Okay, and I'd adjusted the tappets on the car, and with the heads on that car were actually Team VDS Formula 5000 heads from the VDS team of Teddy Billet's Formula 5000 Chevron. If you're not careful, you put the tappet covers on, the exhaust manifold flanges, prop the bloody things off. Well, I did 3 laps of qualifying just to get the car on the grid, because every time I turned into carousel, I had an oil leak. It would just fill the car up with smoke. I couldn't see where I was going. So I put it on 10th on the grid in 3 laps, just dribbling around.
So it wasn't reverse grid, mate?
No, it wasn't reverse grid.
Okay, can we move to the next slide?
No.
Yeah, no. This is where the big thing happens. This is what everyone's seen on Channel 7.
All right. Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, we passed 10 cars in the first lap, and that's the result of it. The guy who thought he was going to win the race thought he was going to win, and I thought I was going to win, and I lost. And that's it. So, yeah, I've had a couple of major ones in my time, and survived them, so that's good.
You had one yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
No, come back. You just had one yesterday, didn't
Yes,
you?
we did.
Thank
They
you.
called me Crash Harris.
Yeah, Crash Harrex, okay. So, we're on to the Bathurst vehicle. Mate, can you tell me, is that one of your mechanics that's trying to work out if that fragrance actually works or not?
She's testing out the Javon motor, the Javon musk oil for ladies. She's definitely trying that out. Can't you see? Had a great fun time in that car. It was a really good car.
Now, just put up your hand if you've ever wanted to race at Bathurst. Come on, every guy in the room. If you're not putting your hand up, you're lying.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Juzzy's done it. Yeah, he's done it. But in the 1000? No, I think there's only one bloke in the room, Mr. Harrex.
Yeah, that's me following John Harvey at Service Paradise. And then
A rover? Really?
yeah, dog.
Can we have the background?
It was definitely a dog. Now look, we raced at Bathurst in the.
Hang on. Dennis, did you want to come up and ask a
No,
question?
just-
No, come up here. Come on.
I just want to hear the
Don't
background on the
start
film.
him
No! The background on the film.
Dennis, I'm offering you the microphone, mate. Come on.
No!
I'll come to you, buddy. Come on. No, you can't hold it, buddy. No.
Can you give us the background on the Falcon, please, Simon?
Good question.
Okay.
It was a
The
forward.
background of the Falcon. The background of that Falcon is it's the rock car. Okay, Dick hit the rock in that car in 1980. Okay, and everybody threw money at him, so he got another. And Ford gave him another body shell, and John Donnelly ended up with that. Not a lot of the mechanicals out of the original car, but basically the basic structure out of it. He had a Falcon hardtop aft before that.
I think you've answered it, mate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was a police car.
Right?
Dick walked out as a police car.
Yes, it was. The police car. Highway patrol car.
Okay, we'll go back to why a rover and keep this really short, mate.
Well, hard to keep. They look pretty good. In '84, it was the first interim year of Group A, and they brought a couple of rovers out, and everybody was going for Falcons or Commodores or whatever, and we thought, well, there's something different. And I happened to have a road car one of those, and so did John Donnelly, and we thought, yeah, we could make one of those. So we made that. Not a bad car, a bit floaty over the humps.
Hang on, you've lost their interest, mate. You've lost their interest.
Oh.
Over the hump.
Over the humps?
Floaty
was it?
over the
Yeah.
humps.
Yeah, floaty, very floaty over the
Okay,
humps.
this is one of those politically incorrect postings. These are shots of Simon's car on display at the Brisbane Motor Show and at the Sheraton Hotel, I believe.
Yeah, press release, sure.
Okay, now we've got a real story. Because that was the end of Simon's racing career at that period of time in his life, and he decided to build a sports sedan for a mate of his, Danny Maneguzzo.
And we used to call him Danny Maneguzza, okay, or Kamagutsa, because he fell over and broke his leg or something like that, so we called him Kamagutsa. He wanted a car. He phoned me up one day and he said, "Can you build me a car?" And I said, "No, don't want to know about it." And he said, "No, please build me a car." So he pressured me. And I said, "Oh, look, how big is it? How tall is it? How wide is it?" He said, "It's this by this." And I said, "That's about the same as my Commodore." And he said, "No, it can't be." I said, "Yes, it is. It's the same as my Commodore." He said, I said, "Look, I've got a spare chassis that I half built in the garage." I said, "Bring your body shell over and we'll plonk it over the top and see where everything matches up." Well, he put the body shell over it, it matched up perfectly. He brought a front mud guard, the wheel was in the right place, and that's what eventuated. Now, this car was pretty well a bulk standard SR20, that's Nissan motor. But they put throttle bodies on it and they stood the cams up a few degrees here and there, and it made 200 horsepower at the wheels. Now the car weighed 600 kilos, so it was really quite a quick car. His first race, while we were building the car, I said to him, "How many races have you won, Danny?" He'd been racing for 13 years. And he said, "None." And I said, "Oh, how many races have you placed in?" And he said, "None." And I said, "Well, you're going to win races in this car." And he said, "Oh, no," he just shrugged it off and said, "No, I don't think that's going to happen." Anyway, we got to the track, and Dr. Ian Corness was the gun driver in the 2-litre series at the time. And as we were walking up, he's walking up from the scrutineering bay, and we were walking down to the scrutineering bay. I said, "Oh, hey Ian, how are you?" I said, "We're here to knock you off." And he said, he looked at Danny and he said, "No, that's not going to happen." Well, it did happen, very much so, because in his first race meeting, a fellow called Phil Ward, who used to run the Bob Jane Monaro, or the ex-Bob Jane Monaro, held the lap record at Lakeside at 59.1 or something like that, for 10 years. The lap record stood there for 10 years. First race meeting, we went out there with new tyres, and instead of the tyres going up 4 or 5 pounds a corner, they went up 10 pounds a corner. And we had to pull him in, which made him lose the race, and repressure the tyres. He went out there, and not only did he break the lap record, he lowered it by over 2 seconds. He set the lap record at 57.1 or 57.2. The car actually was a 56-second car. From that day on, for 2 years, he won every race he went in, and he was Queensland Sports Sedan champion twice, 2 years back-to-back championships. Now,
We're running out of time already. We're only halfway through.
Oh, you're going to do your one?
No, I'm going to cut mine really short. Yeah. Okay, this is another one of the Harrex inventory here. This is, car turns out for scrutineering and it gets knocked back on the pretext that the rear spoiler is too large. This shot here doesn't show it correctly, but the spoiler was wider than the car and sat back behind the line of the car. The scrutineers told him that the car wasn't legal to run because any spoiler that's attached to the rear boot can't exceed those dimensions. He said, "Well, you show me where it's attached to the rear boot."
It's attached to the chassis,
Exactly.
not to the boot.
Okay,
We're on the Richard.
we can talk about me for 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, that's my first BMW, 202, about 1989, somewhere around there.
Nice thing,
Yeah. It was a very clean car, no longer exists. The guy I sold it to was in Lismore and it got written off. So, first ever BMW Motorsport Day, Norwell Park, or Norwell Motorplex, on the skip pan. Good. Okay, I've got to put my hand up. I'm the guy. I am the guy
It has an M badge on his belly.
to put an M badge on an M car in 1982. It was me. I'll take the
You
blame.
started the trend.
I started it. Yeah. That was a pretty cool car though.
What was it?
It was a 323, 1983. The story, a quick story behind that. We had the 2002 was our first family car, and my wife decided she wanted something with air conditioning, blah blah blah. Knew a guy called John Conroy who was a car dealer. I said, "Can you find me an E30 4-door?" He went, "Yeah, no problems. I'm going to the auctions next week." Turned up with an E30 2-door, and my wife said, "That looks much cooler." So that was the car we kept. This was my first track car. Can you believe that? That was my company car, Ford TX5. Hey, how's that? 109s at Lakeside. Oh, and okay, this is where we go back to Danny Meneguzzo's car. So this is where I met Simon. Although we'd been members of the club at the same time, he was off highfalutin it with the 6 Series boys, who did their own thing. They had their secret handshakes, definitely.
And still do.
They still do, definitely. So, a guy that a few of you will know and remember fondly, hopefully, Alan Kerr and myself were travelling down Ipswich Road. We were heading to the Gold Coast in Alan's E30 to participate in a show and shine event that was happening on Macintosh Island. And I'm in the passenger seat. I look to the left, and if you just press forward on that one. There was Harrex Automotive with that particular E30 partially finished sitting in the forecourt. I said to Alan, I said, "Jesus mate, quick, turn left." I actually said something worse than that, but I toned it down. So we turned in and I met Simon Harrex for the first time. And I think there's not too many guys in the room that wouldn't believe at some stage in their life they wanted to be a race car driver. And I'd done, a couple of skip pans, a couple of track days. And I said to Simon, "You're building this car, would you build me a car?" And he said, "Yes, as soon as I've finished Danny's car, I'll build you a car." Which was about 2 weeks later. So, yeah. This is, as you can see, quite a rusty 2002 TII that I found in Rockhampton. It was advertised as having an overdrive 5-speed gearbox. And other than that, it was totally standard. So I flew up to have a look. It had a dogleg 1-to-1 close ratio box and a factory LSD. The guy sold it to me for $1,500. I thought that was a pretty good deal, and that was shipped back to Brisbane. But it was very, very rusty, and it wasn't going to be the basis of a race car. So we also bought this car, which was a local Brisbane car that was in pretty good nick, other than it had the normal boot and bonnet rust, and it also had a sunroof. So we did some work and we combined the two cars by taking the roof off one and the boot and bonnet off the other, and we built a new shell. That was the leftover bits from the TII. It was pretty rusty, and that's pretty close to the finished product, which was the first track or fully fledged track car that Simon had built for me. Well, actually we did, and I've got scars to prove it. We built it together. And it was also the time I met Pierce in the workshop. He was the apprentice at the time. And this car participated in events at Lakeside. It was actually the quickest BMW at Lakeside in its time. It was quicker than all the M3s. It had a massive, absolutely massive 125 horsepower at the rear wheels. And it ran 63-second laps at Lakeside. It also ran at Leyburn in 1988, which was the first time I ever crashed a car. It was a pretty quick little machine. And at that period of time, that was coming back past the grandstand as you came back to the start-finish line, and it's the biggest cheer I've ever had in motorsport. Anyway, this was around the time that sort of Lakeside was closing and QR was opening, and I lost a bit of interest, and I decided to detour motorsport for a while, so I bought an E30 M3. But it wasn't long till I came back into the fold. I went to the dark side.
Very dark.
Very, very dark. I bought a PRC rally car, Datsun 1600, which we took into the workshop and we turned it into that. So it became a track car. Just It's an interesting line the guy behind me's taken into that corner.
No one was steer there at all.
No. But, yeah, go back one. So then I was still hankering after a 2002, and I used to travel to Perth on business on a regular basis, and I'd seen this car in Perth, and I said to the guy, look, if you want to sell that, you need to sell it to me. And he said, no, it's not for sale. He hadn't raced it for 6 years because he got a drive in the Nations Cup, driving an Alfa Romeo. So I decided a couple of years later that I'd fly over again for business and met with him, and we ended up doing a deal, and I bought that car, which is the car that we are currently running today. So that's 15 years ago. There's not much left of that original car. The funny thing about that story was we went to dinner and we did a deal, and I wrote him a cheque and I said, mate, now we just need to get that car to the toll depot so that I can get it to Brisbane. He said, that's where it's in storage, at the toll depot. So it turned up in Brisbane, if you go back one shot, pretty much running as it was, purchased from West Australia, and then over a period of time we worked on that car in Simon Pearce's workshop to improve the performance of the car. We made it a little bit wide-bodied, which gave it some flares. That's a shot at Mount Coot hill climb, I think about 2015. Yeah, again, so you can see from the rear that it's a little bit wider than the standard car. Oh, now this is the that's that car that used to have an M badge on it. The one that I started the trend with.
But it hasn't got one now.
But it turned up at Simon's workshop one day, and it reminded me of the story of how we actually sold that car. We'd actually built a new house out at Kenmore Hills, and my wife was unhappy with the kitchen after a few years, which I gather happens with wives. Oh, there's that politically incorrect thing again, I'm sorry. And she wanted some granite benches in the kitchen and the bathroom, and the guy turned up and he said, Jesus, that's a nice looking beam you got. I said, yeah, it's a bloody good car actually. And then the quote came in, and I rang him and I said, mate, I got your quote. And I said, about that car. I said, what do you mean? I said, do you reckon it's worth a granite kitchen? And he went, yep, done. So that car turned into a granite kitchen and bathrooms. At this time, we decided to make some further improvements to the 2002, and that included changing the engine plant. So I got thrown into the RXA red car for a few events. That's actually the 50th anniversary of the Lakeside Raceway, that shot. And then, geez, things happen. You just have to buy another race car. So I've got the Datsun, I've got the 2002, and then this turns up. I will say that's not me in the car. That photo was taken in 2007. It's the car that came 7th outright in the Bathurst 12 hour, and Sharon Motorsport were returning that car to street trim when I fell across it. And I said, well, how about we don't quite return it to street trim, we leave the roll cage and the race seats and everything else in, get it mod plated and we road register it, which we did. So that car turned into a drive to the racetrack race car. And it was a pretty quick thing actually, in street trim so to speak, with R tyres that ran 61s at Lakeside. And then of course, Mr Harrex wanted to drive it. So there was a McLean's Bridge Charity Day, one of the BMW days that was put on I think by Rob Battle. They put Simon in the car and guess what? Yes, he drove it. Every car we put in. So then back to the 2002. Now with the S14 engine in it, this is one of the first runs at Lakeside in the sports sedan race. The best thing about that photo for any of you that know Danny Mishok is that I'm in front of him. You'll also notice actually there's a fair bit of appearance here of Pierce also always with me in front. It's totally intentional. This is a great shot actually, I love this shot. This is Mount Coot hill climb with the Brisbane City in the background. What a great event, just a pity it's not happening anymore. So this is Morgan Park. We decided that we were going to take the 2002 to Bathurst and run it in a combined sedans event, but I had to upgrade my CAMS licence from the regular local one to a national level, so we did a couple of events at Morgan Park, and then we headed off to Bathurst. That's my Stig photo of Simon. So we were driving to Bathurst, and we passed a sunset. And I thought, that's going to make a great photo. Mate, stick your hands out there like you're the Stig and we'll take a photo. I think it's a great shot of Simon. So we got to Bathurst and it was wet. So first time at Bathurst, 55 cars in pit lane on slicks. They call us out and it starts to rain. And it really, really rained. It was really heavy. Actually, if you go back one slide, probably 4 or 5 of those cars that are behind me there didn't make that corner. They ended up in the wall because they were unable to pull the car up as the water came over the hill. But it was absolutely teeming. And it was actually, there's a guy that a few of you will know, not a BMW club member, but a racer, Callum Watmore, took time to give me lessons of racing Bathurst on a simulator, which was the first time I'd ever done that. Got a headache the first couple of times and got seasick quite a few times doing that because it was like you're falling over in the chair you're sitting in. But it was amazing. I actually felt really quite confident going around the track knowing that I'd done the sim laps. And even in the wet, it didn't really faze me too much. But anyway, the car went really well and we brought it home in one piece. Nice shot up on Skyline there. For those of you who know the guy in the mobile car at the back, that's the guy Steve Hay who I race with. It's just good to have him behind me for a change. Coming onto the starting straight. And classic shot.
A pair of mates.
And that was shortly after, just pop back a second. That was shortly after Alan Kerr had passed away. So we were all, everyone in the BMW camp at Bathurst was running the racing for Alan stickers on their cars. Back to Brisbane, and we're going to make some modifications, build a new motor for the car. So I'm into the blue car with the Harrex. So I'm racing all of their cars, and actually raced this one with Pierce's number on the car, which is probably why it went a lot faster. And then we moved back into the 2002, but this time in blue sponsorship.
You wrapped it.
The car was wrapped in blue. Originally because of one of the businesses I dealt with sponsored it and they had a blue colour, so we wrapped the car in blue and then put stickers over the top. And then we wrapped back into racing with Queensland touring cars, and then back to Bathurst.
And guess who's in front?
Yeah, that's Pierce behind me again. Well, that wasn't all the good that happened there.
It wasn't there for very long.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of a moment here. Will the video play with him? At 161, I think. Oh, 64. Yep.
I can't hear you saying anything.
Not yet. No. How come everyone has a camera these days?
It's in the phone. That's right. No secret.
It was very, very lucky that didn't
Very
tip
lucky
over.
it didn't dig in.
Nice one.
Really lucky.
It was on 2 wheels.
It was definitely on 2 wheels for a little while.
Tell us about the marshal guiding you back out.
Well, he made me back into the fence twice, which was actually probably the bigger crowd cheer was bigger than the event at Leyburn, because he just kept going and the car hit the wall, so I moved forward and he'd come back and I hit the wall again. I said, what's he doing?
It wasn't a holder, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see with a hands device on because you can't turn your head and you've got the ears on your thing, so you're really dependent on the people guiding you.
So what did you really say, Richard?
Well, it started with, I was on the radio at the time and I just went,
It was about 4 or 5 Fs in succession.
yeah. But the car came out, it was in good condition for a little while. I won't show the other bit because we had an incident where a Mini, Ingrid, a Mini pulled up in front of me coming through the cutting and coming down the hill, and I ended up planting the car right in the back of him, and that finished my weekend. So, but we got a bonus. Simon and I, a couple other guys, managed to get some tickets to the 12-hour lounge, and on our table was none other than Colin Bond.
And he walked up and he said, "Oh, I'm Colin Bond," and I said, "Yep, you sure are."
But the funny story behind that one was that on that table there was a father and son team. The son would have been about 18 or 19, and he was an off-road buggy champion. first time at Bathurst, first time looking at touring cars, and everyone's introduced themselves, and he's a little bit of a talk on what he does. And he said to Colin, and he said, "Oh, what do you do?" And Colin said, "Oh, look, I've raced a little bit, you know, not too much." And someone on the table nudged the guy and said, "Google it." And he's Googled it and he's gone, "You've got your own Wikipedia page." Oh, that's just to show that I'm in front of Pierce again. I'm in the red car, he's in the blue car. Oops! Yeah. So this was another.
Who raced it?
Well, that was, you have to admit, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. Never my fault.
It was wet.
No. Just back. So, actually, another BMW driver who will remain nameless, Chris Begg, decided that he was going to come down the inside of me into turn 3 at QR. A little bit of outbroke himself. I gave him some room, and the tap was minuscule. I mean, it was like he'd laid a finger on the car, and it went round, and then the poor guy in the Commodore T-boned me, and that was the result. The amazing thing was that they called, because the Commodore had been stranded, they called the safety car, which let me run through pit lane, talking to Simon on the radio, saying, "Can you check the car for damage? Can I keep going?" And he came and he said, "Pull the bumper bar off, we're gone, go again." So I didn't drop a lap, which meant that I actually came second overall for the weekend after the crash. And of course Simon said that will buff out. And again.
And there it is, buffed out.
Look at that, 10 minutes later. Wow. Unbelievable.
Impressive.
So then I jumped in the car one more time, and by then I thought, you know, there's a mate of mine that hasn't raced for 28 years, bloke called Simon Harrex. So I'm going to stick him in the car. So we took him out to Lakeside. This is a photo. The next photo is a photo of him actually at the time attack event. No, that's got 2 pillows, mate, 2 pillows.
I've always got a pillow, put a pillow in there.
So we took him out to Lakeside. He was actually quite nervous. It was quite an interesting experience for me, seeing a guy that was usually so cocky be so nervous. Anyway, we stuck him in the car, and he went out in the first session, and he was slow. I mean, he was really slow. And I'm going, Jesus, have I done the wrong thing? And then I said to him, "Mate, you know," he said, "Oh, look, I'm just getting used to it, So the second session, he was a little bit quicker. And the third session, he did 6 laps of the car, probably about a second or slower than Pierce and myself would have been. Pretty impressive. But the 6 laps were less than half a second apart in time. It was just like he had clicked back into gear, and the last session was exactly the same. So with that we thought, okay, let's go and race QTCC. Let's stick him in the car. So next shot is a shot of Simon passing the Escort to take the lead in the very first race that he raced at Lakeside QTCC. And there's him taking the checkered flag. So that's a pretty big achievement. He actually came second overall for the weekend because he had a couple of technical infringements. So the technical infringements meant that he was actually going too fast for the category that he was running in. And I remember vividly standing on the trailer in the top of the course, because I'm on the radio to him, and I've got a timer. I know that he's going too fast. And I'm saying, "Mate, just back off after you go through the kink. Just back off." I said this every lap, 10 laps. Back off after you go through the kink. One of the other QTCC drivers was standing next to me at the end of the race, took the headset off, and he said, "Mate, I'd just be fucking happy if I could drive that fast through the kink when I'm his age. Don't tell me that." So anyway, we stuck him back in the car, and this was the result. Oh, where's that gear? Where's that gear? Come on, there it is. Oh. You'll notice a little bit of smoke in front where 2 cars have collided. Everyone goes everywhere. Can anyone guess?
You fucking useless prick.
Not even close. Not even close. Okay, so that's the resultant damage to the car. That's an interesting shot. That's the strap off the hands device on the helmet that Simon was wearing. So you can see how effective they are by the stretch that's built in. So what they do is they decelerate the forward head movement, and the strap actually stretches to slow the head down in that forward movement. And that was about 20 centimetres, I think, that strap. The chances are, if Simon wasn't wearing that
He'd be very sore in the neck.
or he may not even be here.
And
Yep. So we're very near the end now. A couple more slides to go. That's me in front of Pierce again.
Oh, poor
At
Pierce.
least you can just
That's me in front of a couple of the beamers. I just thought I'd throw that in as well.
Got enough curve there?
There's,
Got
there,
enough curve? Go back.
there's,
Look at the curve.
well, it took both wheels off, mate. Come on, that's an impressive photo.
Yeah.
And there's my mate, my team manager. That's the guy that talks to me when I'm in the car. We have an absolute hilarious time together. There is, and then we've thrown a couple of photos to finish off, which are just shots of
Garage Queen.
the garage queen, the queen from home. Carol, stand up, Carol. How you put up with him, I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea. And now he's just showing off. So, in finishing off, look, all I can really say is that, you know, if we went back 25 years and I hadn't looked out the window and seen that sports sedan sitting in the forecourt of Simon's workshop, how different would our lives have been? You know, I may never have ever got in a race car, may never have crashed.
How much richer would you be?
Sorry?
How much richer would you be?
Shit loads. Shit loads.
You only live once, mate. You've got to spend it while you got it.
But on the other hand, look, there's a few things Simon would never have done either. He'd have never eaten a kebab. He'd have never eaten whole grain wheat bix. Never slept in a toilet. That story comes from our first trip to Bathurst when I found out that sharing a room with Simon was not ideal because he snores like a chainsaw. So we decided that the toilet was actually big enough for him to put a mattress on the floor and sleep in there.
And mate, I was right next to the job. So
He loved it. There was no emergencies during the night. He just got up and went, boom.
have to get out of bed.
Anyway, there's a few more stories, so if you want to talk to him, grab him, chat him a drink at the bar and have a chat. Cheers.
And you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And just before you go, as a thank you
Oh, really?
for both of you.